think this is the fullest I've ever seen this room. It's very exciting to see all of you here. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. Anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the access instructions listed for this meeting on the city's public webcast and meeting materials web page. Tonight's meeting will include a public forum. If you wish to speak during the public forum and haven't already done so, please fill out a request to speak form available on our public webcast and meeting materials web page. For those of you who are here in person, printed forms are available at the entrance to the room. We'll accept request to speak forms until 7:35. These request to speak forms will be used to generate the random order of speakers and correctly enter speakers' names into the public record. For those joining the meeting by phone who wish to provide testimony and are unable to complete the request to speak form online, press *9 when the forum or hearing is announced, and the last 3 digits of your phone number will be added to the speaker's queue. And as a reminder, it may be the first time for many of you here, we have a few rules. First of all, we don't allow flags, signs, loud or disruptive language, noise, or conduct that obstructs the business of council. We ask that you keep the room quiet and respectful for all speakers. And you are always welcome to wave your hands in silent support, but we want this to be a safe place for everyone to have an opportunity to speak clearly and without interruption. We also encourage any of you who are ill or who have had close contact with others who are ill to join the meetings remotely rather than here in person. And we encourage you to spread out as much as you can in this room and wear a mask if you're comfortable doing so. And we do have some available in the back of the room. And now with that, those housekeeping announcements complete, I will formally open this with a land acknowledgement. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been the indigenous stewards to our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. Today's land acknowledgement is a way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and of honoring Native communities by inviting truth and reconciliation. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. As we consider the impacts of colonization, we also acknowledge the strength and resiliency of displaced indigenous people. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as Kalapuya Ilahi. Kalapuya descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Celeste Indians of Oregon. They continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We express our respect for the inherent political sovereignty of all federally recognized tribal nations and indigenous people who live in the state of Oregon and across the nation. And now, in honor of Veterans Day, last Friday, November 11th, I'd like to welcome a very special guest to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Eugene Police Officer J.A. Warden. Officer Warden has been a member of the SWAT team for 23 years and is a veteran of the Oregon National Guard, where he was a scout sniper to 2nd Battalion of the 162nd Infantry Headquarters Platoon with 2 overseas ribbons and 1 Army Achievement Medal. Thank you, Officer Warden, for your service and for being with here tonight to lead us. And with that, if you would all please rise and turn to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Officer Warden, for joining us and for leading us and for your service. Thank you. And now I have one more important ceremonial matter, which is a proclamation in honor of Transgender Day of Remembrance. Whereas Transgender Day of Remembrance honors the lives that were lost in the past year to anti-transgender violence, violence born of ignorance and prejudice. And whereas the federal government has recognized Transgender Day of Remembrance on the 20th day of November, and Whereas transgender and gender diverse people contribute greatly to our community's rich diversity and prosperity. And whereas the city of Eugene has a long-standing tradition of upholding the dignity of all individuals, supporting legal equality and fair treatment for all citizens, and ensuring that acts of neglect and violence toward any segment of the population will not be tolerated. And whereas the city of Eugene reaffirms the community's commitment to ensuring diversity, social justice, equity, and mutual respect throughout our community. And whereas the city of Eugene proudly states that we support our transgender and gender diverse community members. Now, therefore, I, Lucy Venus, Mayor of the City of Eugene, Oregon, do hereby proclaim November 20, 2022 to be Transgender Day of Remembrance in Eugene, Oregon, and encourage all community members to join in this special observance, work toward eliminating discrimination on all levels, and promote understanding. Thank you. And now we're ready for our first, we're ready for committee reports and items of interest. Actually, do I have counselors with items to share? Counselor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I want to give a report on the last IGR committee meeting. The IGR committee met on November 2nd. As a reminder, the monthly IGR committee meetings are scheduled for the first Wednesday of every month, with the next meeting scheduled for Wednesday, December 7th. And for those of you who don't know the acronym out there, it's the Intergovernmental Relations Committee. At the November meeting, the committee debriefed the IGR work session from October and discussed the follow-up on Measure 110. Direction was given to bring back on the December 7th meeting recommendations on potential policy statement, new priority, or support for legislation being introduced. Capital construction priority requests to the legislature in 2023. Direction was given to bring back to the December 7th meeting a recommendation on the city's project funding priorities. Climate friendly and equitable community. It was decided to wait until after the November 8th general election to discuss potential next steps for advocacy. Rental housing updates at the December 7th meeting, bring back versions to the Eugene state and federal policy document to align with adopted council policy from phase 1 rental housing project. In council work session on December 12th, the IGR manager is scheduled to bring back to full council for discussion and action the items considered during the December 7th IGR meeting. Additionally, the committee directed the IGR manager to recommend revisions to the regular updates on IGR matters to the full council. The following items were agreed upon by the committee. 1, all councilors are encouraged to bring items of interest for follow-up by the IGR committee to members of the IGR committee, the IGR manager, the city manager, or mayor at any time. Existing IGR chair will provide regular updates to the council during the committee updates and items of interest section of the meeting. New, outside of the session, 1 update per month during items of interest by the IGR chair at the first Monday meeting. This will share with council the outcomes from the monthly IGR committee meeting. The IGR manager will send this update to the chair prior to the meeting. And also new during the session, 2 updates per month to the council during items of interest by the chair, including committee meeting outcomes and priority bill update. The IGR manager will send this update to the chair prior to the meeting. Existing, the IGR manager will provide weekly a priority bill update email to the full council when the legislature is in session. And during the session, the weekly priority bill update email will be included within weekly council packets.
Thank you very much. That was a lot to report. I appreciate you working your way through it. Councilor Keating and then Councilor Semple.
Thank you, Mayor. 6 days on the heels of a memorable and grueling midterm election. I just want to say thank you to everyone who voted, volunteered, donated, and participated in our democracy. Since we have such a swath of students in the room today, how many folks voted in Tuesday's election? Yes, thank you so much for being voters. Gen Z turned out for the first time, your age group, your age cohort turned out for the first time at a larger percentage than voters 65 and over across this country. It's phenomenal. Thank you for being voters, and congratulations, Mayor, to my colleagues who won re-election, who are on the ballot by themselves because you had a hard fight in May. So congratulations to Councilors Evans, Yeh, and Zelenka and Clark.
Yes.
On your right, thank you, on your re-elections, and congrats and kudos to Congress member-elect Val Hoyle and Governor-elect Tina Kotek. Hence the hair. It's a bad Halloween costume gone wrong out of an homage. I suspected that Rich, my fiance, likes it about as much as you do. So I've made a promise to her that it'll be back to normal in time for the wedding. Thanks so much, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Semple.
Thank you. Just want to let everybody know that tomorrow from 4 to 6 at the Farmers Market Pavilion, there will be an open house with refreshments about downtown. We're looking for downtown brainstorming. What do you want to see? Ideas for safety, business, housing, whatever you think about downtown. Please come downtown tomorrow between 4 and 6 and talk to us about your visions. If you can't make it, then there will be a survey coming out. So thank you for your involvement. Yes, vote all the time. Your vote always counts. My first election, I won by 140 votes. So never think your vote doesn't count. And thanks for being here. Woohoo.
Thank you. Any other councilors with comments or updates? All right. Well, with that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Councilor Evans, can you put a motion on?
Yes, I move to approve the items on consent calendar 1.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we're ready to move on to the public forum.
Mayor,
Oh, yep.
we have
do we
2
have-
items
Have I
prior to that.
skipped
We
something?
have the council tentative agenda and we have appointments to the police commission.
Those are all within the consent agenda.
We are,
You
oh,
just-
that's right.
you
It
just-
is. It's
Yes.
A, B, and C. of
It's
this
A, B, and C
consent.
within
That's
that.
right.
Yep. Yep. You're good.
My bad.
You caught me though. I was like, I've skipped things before. Okay, public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the city council on any city-related issues, except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official. And I will turn to Sarah, if you could please share the list and the total number of speakers that have signed up to speak and announce the first speakers. Oh, I will just add a note here that I want all of you to know in the audience that we limit the public forum to 90 minutes total. So I will encourage you you have 2.5 minutes to speak, and encourage you to, if you can use less time, that gives a better opportunity for everyone to have a chance to speak before we hit that 90-minute mark. So with that, the list is up and I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 32 people signed up to speak. If you have signed up to speak via Zoom, please take this time to ensure that your screen name in Zoom matches the name that you used to sign up to speak. I will announce 2 speakers' names at a time. If you're providing testimony via Zoom, when it is your turn, I will announce your name and promote you to panelist status. You can unmute and turn on your camera at that time if you wish. If you are announced as the next speaker and physically in the room, please move to the seat in the front row designated for the next speaker. When it is your turn, you may come to the podium. When you are called to speak, please state your name clearly, and for Eugene residents, your ward or neighborhood if known, before beginning your comments. If you are physically in the room, when you've completed your testimony, if you could step out into the lobby to allow room for other people to come in to complete their testimony and also witness, that would be appreciated. You will have 2.5 minutes to speak. If you are watching the meeting, the timer should be visible. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of the 2.5 minutes. For those of you who have connected to the meeting via phone and don't have the benefit of seeing the timer, please be aware that your microphone will be muted at the 2.5 minute mark. Please note that screen sharing or displaying information on the screen is not allowed, and any misuse of the platform or violation of the council's code of conduct will result in immediate termination of speaking privilege. If you have documents to give to council, please place them in the council inbox basket near the podium at the front of the room. Our first speaker will be Jack Stoutenberg, followed by Megan Turley.
Hi, my name is Jack Stoutenberg, and I'm not a Oregon resident. Hello, my name is Jack Stoutenberg. I'm a junior at the University of Oregon and part of the Lundquist School of Business. I'm here speaking on you tonight behalf on many individuals I personally know who feel that the police have been overly aggressive in their enforcement efforts focused on targeting illegal alcohol use, noise ordinance violations, and unruly gatherings in neighborhood areas around the university. Students I know are fearful of the individuals who are supposed to protect us from danger. I have a personal experience I'd like to share with you now. During Halloween weekend, my house decided to host a social event. Around 11:30 p.m., the police showed up at my house. I'm not sure if it was a noise complaint or if they happened to drive by. They approached the door and told us to shut down the social event. We complied and started following people out of the house. Then they asked for all residents of my house to come outside to get cited for a violation that we committed. They provided an unreasonable amount of time for all residents to come outside because there are over 30 people who live at my house, and many of them were either not at the home at the time or out of town. When 30 people failed to gather outside within a few minutes, the police quickly judged us as being uncooperative. While some people are being cited and were compliant with one officer, the other officer in charge came up and said that they're arresting everyone who lives at this house for not following his orders. This is not because we're being disrespectful or uncooperative. This is because we didn't come out all at once. Many of us didn't even know what the situation was going on, including me. While this was happening, I was in my room and decided to leave my house to walk a friend to another friend's house because I think the streets of Eugene are dangerous at night and not safe to be walking alone. I walked downstairs and saw a police officer standing in the doorway. I walked up to the officer and asked if I could help in any way. I was asked if I lived here in response, which I said yes. Without any hesitation, I was handcuffed and put in a prisoner transport vehicle. I was read my rights, however, many of my friends were not. I was not told why I was being arrested. I spent more than an hour in the van handcuffed. I was treated like a criminal, and I spent the entire night in jail over an unruly gathering that I was barely a part of. While I was in jail at 1:47 a.m., more police showed up with a search warrant looking for stereo equipment. They proceeded to break.
Thank you, Jack. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Megan Turley, followed by Luda Isakarov.
Good evening, Council. My name is Megan Turley, and I am a resident of the West University neighborhood, as well as a member of the University of Oregon's student government. And I'm here today to express my concerns about the Eugene Police Department's recent use of force on the student body. The current relationship between students and EPD officers is setting a harmful precedent of continually escalating behavior and subsequently causing many students to no longer view the police as a legitimate body for public safety. For weeks, I've seen video after video of my peers being pushed to the ground, thrown against vehicles, and screamed at while receiving citations for open containers or minor in possession. This all occurs during EPD's party patrol, which predominantly happens within the West University neighborhood on the evenings of Friday, Saturday, and occasionally Thursday nights. This treatment of any community member is unacceptable, and it cannot continue to go unchecked. I understand that officers want to feel respected by the student body. However, safety and respect is a two-way street. We are deserving of the same respect that officers expect us to treat them with, regardless of the fact that we are students. Penalties for students who are objectively causing a disturbance within their community are a necessary consequence. But the high volume of citations and the increased use of force over the last few weeks are beginning to seem more like a way to collect money and establish power rather than something meant to address legitimate problems of safety concerns. Some of the increase in citations can be attributed to the increased patrols, but I'm beginning to question where the proof of the deterrent effect is. If the goal of Party Patrol is to take a data-informed approach to decrease the number of students participating in underage drinking, noise disturbances, or unruly gathering, I'm curious about what data has truly pointed towards this form of policing as an efficient solution. Students are scared and we're asking for help. City Council needs to recognize the overall failures of their current system to curb partying in the West University neighborhood. The lack of accountability for the Eugene Police Department is putting us on the brink of something catastrophic resulting from these patrols. It is time to come together and look at alternative solutions to address shared concerns, but we need to work quickly in order to be preventive in our approach. Solutions like that we've seen at University of Colorado, where students register party ahead of time with the local officers, or other alternatives to Party Patrol, should be made available to students and taken into consideration in a community deliberation. The way forward is going to require genuine and good faith efforts from all relevant stakeholders to do this smarter and get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Next, we will hear from Luda Iskarov, followed by Ian Moore.
Good evening. My name is Luda Saharov, and I'm the student body president at the University of Oregon and a resident of the West University neighborhood. I want to start by thanking you all for hearing us tonight and providing this public forum for students to share their experiences. And I just want to share that there's over 20 students waiting outside right now that couldn't make it inside. Today, I'm here to share both my perspective as a student leader, but also as a resident of Eugene. For my first 2 years of college, like many of the people here, were the COVID years. There was very little social activity. We were always in our rooms and almost no engagement with law enforcement and no college experience at all. I did not expect so soon into my first glimpses of the traditional college experience, I would have to be so afraid of being a college student. Seeing cops stopping every single student they see on corners, in many cases escalating situations and getting violent, and handing out 60 to 70 citations per weekend has become terrifying for me and other people here. I've always been afraid to walk alone at night in Eugene as a female, but now I am more afraid after personally seeing 8 officers surround one girl that was walking by herself and seeing videos of girls getting shoved to the ground. And what I'm most terrified is my peers and my friends have now started expressing to me that they don't feel comfortable calling 911 when they're hosting parties in cases of emergencies and feel like they need to handle emergency situations by themselves out of fear of having to engage with law enforcement. This is terrifying. This week, the ASUO encouraged students to come to City Council to share their experiences on interacting with EPD, and many students could not make it and will be submitting comments virtually. Over the past few months since the Party Patrol program began, ASUO has made many efforts to mediate the situation and to prevent tensions from growing. We have educated students on how to be good neighbors and Eugene community members. We have trained leaders in Greek life on how to have positive and respectful interactions with law enforcement and knowing their rights. And we have sat down with the chief of EPD and leaders of UOPD on finding solutions to this issue. And every weekend, it feels like things are getting worse and the violence is escalating. Students have put in a lot of time and energy into addressing this issue and being respectful community members. And I would love to see the city reciprocate the same effort and step up in the same way students have. I hope you will hear everyone's voices today, and this will.
Thank you, Luda. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Ian Moore, followed by Jacob Loomis.
Thank you, City Council. My name is Ian Moore, and I'm a sophomore at U of O. I just want to share a little personal anecdote. Last year, I went to a house show held in someone's backyard. I think 3 bands were playing. It was pretty good, pretty fun. We all were having a pretty good time. Out of nowhere, 6 police cars showed up, including a prisoner transport van, immediately cleared out the area. To have these events happen takes a lot of time and effort on the part of local musicians who like to share their music and just let people have a good time by going to their shows. But the extreme police presence has made it hard for a lot of these musicians to feel comfortable actually hosting these shows. It leads to a a lack of artistic talent and opportunities for people to enjoy live music in Eugene, which I think is a great part of the college experience, not just for students, but also for the community as a whole, to be able to see this artistic work. And I think that the police really should just take a step back and not have to enforce these ridiculous laws.
Yeah. Thank you. Next, we will hear from Jacob Loomis, followed by Julia Lowe.
Hey, I'm Jacob Loomis. I live in the West University District, and I'm also here to talk about Party Patrol. I've been doing a lot of the research for ASUO about the Party Patrol initiative, here to speak out against it. I've been using publicly available data on the EPD log, and you can see a clear and present pattern of targeting in the West Eugene neighborhood. If you just look from this year, the rise of increases of citations and arrests is far outweighs last year's. So we do see this present targeting of students in the West Eugene neighborhood, especially on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And if we look at last year's data, it is more spread out around the city. So it indicates that these crimes take place around the city and not just in the West Eugene neighborhood. This increase in targeting of students is due to the Party Patrol that EPD has taken on. This targeted effort is harmful and demeaning to students, as many of the students have already addressed and will address for you this evening. And it's hard for students. It really affects them mentally, physically. I've seen students drop out because of police presence. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Next, we will hear from Julia Lowe, followed by Kelly Shunk.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Lowe, and I also live in West University. I'm a student at the University of Oregon. Thank you all for providing this opportunity for us to share our thoughts with you. The drastic increase in policing has had negative impacts on the UO student community, and I am here to voice some questions surrounding these increases. So, as a fourth-year student, I have lived off of campus for the past 3 years. Granted, we have been in a pandemic for most of that. However, the police presence is markedly different from what I experienced my freshman year of college before COVID-19 began. I am really wondering what is the impetus of this increased policing, specifically toward alcohol and noise-related violations. Further than that, what is the goal of these increased citations? And who is the governing body in charge of these decisions? And how can students be involved in talking about these decisions further than this? Overall, the drastic increased policing has created more stress in the lives of college students. Something we can all agree on is a very negative outcome of this. What would be greatly appreciated is an increased communication pathway between Eugene Police Department and University of Oregon students to actually understand what we can and can't do, as well as the gravity of the actual citations that are being handed out. For a lot of students, this is our first interaction with police, and it can be a very scary situation and one where we may not be informed of our rights. And that definitely is part of our duty as citizens in a society, but it is very difficult when we can't anticipate what the changes are going to be and what these charges are being handed out. In short, more information surrounding what sparked the increased policing, as well as what the goal of this increased policing, are the main questions that me and my fellow peers would love to hear more about. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Next, we will hear from Kelly Shunk, followed by Madeline Cowan.
Hi, my name is Kelly Shunk. I live in the Jefferson West Side neighborhood. So couldn't ask for a better segue with all of the students. I'm sorry to hear of what they're dealing with. We have the opposite. I live on the 600 block of West 8th Avenue, and we're being held hostage in our homes. I have other neighbors here as well. We're getting 46-minute police response times, 58 minutes, and this is with people threatening our lives 20 feet from our doors. We're getting no help. We're not getting help from animal control with dogs running in our yards, pit bulls being sicked on us by people living on the street between our homes. They've threatened to kill all of us. They know where we live. They're trying my back doorknob every night. I'm getting no help. We're talking months of no help. And so that's why we're and my neighbors are here. So it sounds like a lot of the cops are at the university. While I'm sitting down at 600 West 8th with my son on the U.S. Paralympic Alpine Ski Team, representing this town on the world stage in Beijing, who is now going to go out and endanger himself by defending his mom because of what is happening outside of our house. Meantime, you're preying on students that are paying to come here to school. I pay taxes. I'm getting no help, zero, zip. I'm being threatened daily. I don't want to go out of my house. I'm scared that my son is going to go out and defend me because of all this that's going on. This is escalating. We're getting no help. Send the freaking cops to us. Get them off of the students' backs. I'm paying money and I'm not getting help. They don't need to be at campus. They're just trying to be kids. They're just trying to be college students. I'm down on the Jefferson West Side as a 58-year-old grandma getting no help, ready to take concealed carry classes. Talking to Officer Warden here who told us to get tasers because they're not going to help us. So I got 15 seconds. You're going to listen to a lot of kids. Get them out of the university. Get the cops into places that need help. They don't need to be breaking down alcohol parties.
Next, we will hear from Madeline Cohen, followed by David Eigel.
Mayor Venice, City Council, and City Maderi, thank you so much for the opportunity to provide testimony virtually tonight. As a previous University of Oregon student, I definitely support their efforts in getting less police presence around their area. But I am here tonight to really thank you for your tireless work prioritizing the health of our community and our climate, and for considering critical electrification policies here in Eugene. I really cannot tell you how excited I am to see the city of Eugene leading the way towards electrification. Last week, an article in the Oregonian covered a recent report released in Multnomah County. The top line message was, your gas stove can make you and your children sick. The recommendation from the county included that residents should transition away from gas stoves and other gas appliances because of the dangerous air pollutants they release. The report also goes on to reveal that the threats to human health caused by gas in homes doesn't stop there. Many people have gas furnaces and hot water heaters that are releasing emissions and contributing to the climate crisis. Melanie Plout, a retired doctor, now volunteering with the Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility, said it very well. We know that everything we burn, we breathe, so we need to get away from burning fossil fuels, not just for climate reasons, but also for health reasons. After another summer of record-breaking and deadly heat waves, wildfires, and drought, and in the face of dire warnings from the scientific community, we know that we cannot wait any longer to take material action to reduce pollution in the city. Concrete policies to decarbonize our buildings and protect the public health of our most vulnerable communities is needed now. It is time to stop the spread of harmful gas infrastructure and to begin working towards retrofitting existing buildings with an emphasis on supporting low-income and BIPOC and historically marginalized communities in the transition off of fossil fuels. In light of this, I strongly support electrification policies like the ones that is being currently considered, and urge council to vote to transition residential buildings in Eugene to be all electric starting June 1st, 2023. Thank you so much for your consideration and for your time this evening.
Thank you, Madeline. Next, we will hear from David Eigel, followed by William Smith.
I'm here today because of the extensive fraudulent Oregon history that has been promoted, including by some members of the city council and the city itself. In this regard, I will be asking the council to sign a letter of apology to the family of Professor Frederick Dunn with regard to the smearing of his good name. I recently learned of the death of Professor Dunn's grandson, Gavin Dunn, in October. He had told me how Professor Dunn's great-great-grandson had been enrolled at the U of O in 2006, intending to start as a freshman. Then Mr. Schill and others began spreading their hideous lies about Professor Dunn and the people of Oregon. The young man and his family then decided he should attend school elsewhere. Professor Dunn was widely beloved after a lifetime of service to the people of Oregon, especially the U of O students. He volunteered for military service in World War I at the ripe old age of 46. He was the proud member of one of the most heroic and courageous abolitionist families in the U.S. His grandparents moved from Illinois to Bleeding, Kansas, where they dedicated and risked their lives for years as they worked with the Underground Railroad to free slaves. Professor Dunn was not active with the KKK, but he does appear in the press touting his abolitionist ancestors, as well as the fact of how at age 3 in Eugene, he played the role of Little Harry, the black slave child in a Eugene production of Uncle Tom's Cabin. This whole nonsense started 70 years later after these events occurred, when an idiot named Eckhart Toy wrote a stupid article, which he didn't bother to do the work to check what he was saying. There's a letter written by Dean Sheldon where he's laughing at the idea that Dunn would be ahead of this group. It's like saying Dave Frohnmeyer was part of a group of money hustlers or hustling people for money on a cheap fraud. It's the same thing. I hope you'll be taking action on this in the future. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from William Smith, followed by Matt Beecher.
Thank you. William Smith, Ward 1, here to talk about wireless safety and broadband infrastructure again. And the sub-theme for tonight for me is going to be evidence. It's easy to forget how important that is because it's such a complex issue and there's so many legal aspects to it, as you know, from the city manager's very thorough email from September 12th. The first piece of evidence you've seen before, it's this microwave radiation detector. And so I'm going to flip it on. This is a Safe and Sound Pro, $400. I don't work for them. I just find this useful. And I borrowed it from Josh, who's the real scientific expert. So what that's showing is that probably from the Wi-Fi in this room, that we're all being exposed to unsafe levels of microwave radiation. And it's kind of like cigarette smoking. It won't kill you right away. But in the long run, there's other evidence you can look up, like the National Toxicology Program's 10-year study. The wireless industry doesn't like to talk about that, and they'll do everything they can to distract you from it. But it's real if you want to go look it up. Or you can go to the site, wearetheevidence.com, which is a little more user-friendly. And on the other side, I would like to, well, let's see, is there any other evidence? I guess there is lots of evidence that fiber optics are safe. They're not only in the ground, they're just glass, and they carry an infinite bandwidth. And 40 years of use, they've actually shown they're so reliable that they now comprise the backbone of the internet. What the telecoms want is they want to control that last mile to businesses and homes, and then use their monopoly business model to make profits for their shareholders, even if it's unsafe. So I would say kudos to you for the downtown network. People are really enjoying the performance and the low cost, and it's safe. People might not care about that as much, but for those of us who are figuring out our health challenges, we're extra grateful. And we do hope you'll continue the progress to get it out to everyone and reject applications for more wireless towers. They're not needed. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Next, we will hear from Matt Beecher, followed by Richard Locke.
Hey guys, hope you can hear me. I'm a 15-year resident of Eugene's West neighborhood, Ward 8. I'm calling because of a recurring challenge we have with the houseless population living in a forest behind my home. It is not part of Parks and Open Spaces. It belongs to Umbrella Properties Company. They have a large apartment complex in the area, and it is a protected wetlands, which often is occupied by illegal campers. Currently, I have experienced both drug dealing, violence, gunshots, knives, fighting, sexual activity just beyond my fence in my backyard, to the point where I will not let my children go outside in their own yard to play. Much like Shelley, I feel like I am a hostage in my home. I have called the police several times. They will not respond due to the fact that it's private property. I filed a city code violation ordinance with the city on November 3rd. They are obligated to respond within 48 hours due to the fact that it is indeed a protected wetland. It is a environmental violation. There is 12 illegal campsites currently. The fires, the violence, the defecation it's overwhelming. And much like Shelley, don't send the cops to the students on campus. Send them to your tax-paying citizens who have been here for 15 years, who want to be safe, who want our children to play outside and use our parks. I can't walk down the bike path. My wife can't walk down the bike path. Nobody in this neighborhood wants to walk down our bike path because of the people who are occupying this forest and are causing so much trouble. I don't understand why the city hasn't responded yet to this complaint, or why the people who have violated city code aren't being held responsible. If I were to violate city code, I would expect that the city would hold me accountable for my actions and I would respond. Yet Umbrella Properties hasn't had to do anything for over 2 weeks, and it's only growing. It's only getting worse. Send the cops to the people who need them. Leave the students alone. Let my children and the children in this neighborhood feel safe when they go outside to play. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we will hear from Richard Locke, followed by David Piccioni.
Well, if this isn't a perfect storm, I guess we're going to talk about selective law enforcement tonight rather than Northwest Natural Gas, which I thought that all these kids were here for. The real telling thing is that our last speaker, and then Shelley before, I've been talking about this selective law enforcement for quite a while. These kids here, the reason I believe is that look at the neighborhood where it's at, and then also they have means, right? They'll pay the fine. The homeless that we're not addressing don't have any means. Therefore, they're not going to get any fines. So we're going to pay the attention to the people that can pay it. So to change the subject here, I would like to thank you, Mayor, for our little meeting we had after last open forum. I was able to use that to gather quite a bit of information and address the county commissioners a week ago about the utilization of our shelters. Coming across it in all forums, we have approximately 2,639 units, beds, whatever you want to call them, whatever sector you're in. What I found is that we are grossly unutilized there. It runs between 75 and 80% on most of them, except for one. And guess who that is? Everyone Village. He's running at over 100% occupation right now. And I understand he just finished 10 units and he can't get the local governments and services to help him fill those. So here we're going to have more beds that are going to be open, and we still have the problem on the street underneath and the Amazon bike path is, we're doing a great job, city manager, in doing the cleanup that was promised. But if you that's looking south or west down the Amazon Creek and bike trail. But if you look to the north against all the business buildings, it's nothing but freelance billboards and artwork and garbage and feces and all the other things that go along with it. So
Richard, your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from David Piccioni, followed by Mike Schwab.
Hello, everybody. I haven't been a student for about 30 years, but I do want to resonate with some of the things that the students have said. For example, when I go out, I'm not in the college area. I'm more in the alley areas, part of town, the Whitaker neighborhood, that kind of, more shady kind of part. And I'm not scared of it. People there, but I am concerned about the police. Even though I'm not doing any crimes, I'm not committing any crimes. Now, I spoke to my friend Emily a few years ago, and she pointed out that, it's not the same for women. That women or the elderly or young children can feel more threatened than a guy like me. But it still indicates that there is some kind of imbalance here between these people that I can run into on the alley that have been high for 30 days on meth, or that are strung out on heroin and need money so bad that they would do anything. And I'm not scared of them, but I'm scared of the cops who have like guns and tasers and bulletproof vests. And now I don't even carry a knife anymore. And if somebody really is scared of people on the street, I don't know what to recommend. I can't recommend that, but I don't know, just think of something. Thank you very much for listening. That's all I got.
Thank you, David. Next, we will hear from Mike Schwab, followed by Lynn Woodridge. Mike, unmute and go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, I've lived in Eugene for over 14 years now. It's a great, unique city, special place, but I feel like it's not living up to its potential. I'd like to see it develop a national reputation of being among the best cities along the West Coast. The new 5th Street Public Alley is great. I'm looking forward to the completion of riverfront development. I'd like to see more projects in the city to make it more exciting and inspirational, to make Eugene more exciting to live and to boost tourism. Many people travel here for events, but how many people come here just because it's a unique and cool place to visit? It could be like that. There are several great things that Eugene has going for it that could make it more exciting. I only have time to discuss one right now, which is embracing the Oregon Country Fair. And we have one of North America's best arts and music festivals nearby, but walking around Eugene or Springfield, there isn't much evidence of that. I think it's a missed opportunity to not incorporate a little more of the positivity, beauty, inspiration from the fair into the city. I lived in Reno for a little bit, and one of the things they've done right is they've embraced Burning Man into the city. Because Reno is relatively close to Burning Man, they've taken advantage of it. They have awesome large art installations that were Burning Man in the city as public art. They have something called the Playa Art Trail. People go around, take pictures next to the art pieces. This certainly added beauty and joy to the city of Reno, and I'd like to see some large, beautiful, and unique art pieces from country fair artists in a section of downtown Eugene. Ideally, some would be interactive too. Also, it'd be ideal if there was a country fair-like stage with periodic fair-like performances. I even have a name for the area of town for this, the Oregon Country Square. I contacted OCF folks about it, and they said it'd be great to see it happen. The city could certainly use more positive, exciting, and beautiful things around. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we will hear from Lynn Woodridge, followed by Bill Armstrong. Lynn, unmute and go ahead when you're ready.
My name is Lynn Woodridge, living in Ward 6 with my 94-year-old in the Bethel portion of Ward 8 for over 25 years to discuss this topic with our ABC.
We are having trouble hearing you.
Yes.
Your audio connection is very poor. We're having trouble hearing you. I will ask you to disconnect and reconnect, and then I will have you after our next speaker so that we can hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Next, we will hear from Bill Armstrong, followed by Lynn Woodridge.
Hi, I'm Bill Armstrong, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I wanted to talk to you about drug activity in the Jefferson West Side neighborhood. Over the past year, I've witnessed increasing levels of drug dealing and drug use in the Salvation Army parking lot in front of my home on 8th Avenue, a block west of Jefferson. Gangs of drug dealers occupy the lot day and night. Drug dealers or users drive in or walk into the lot and they're approached by multiple dealers. Frequently, users park their cars and shoot up on the spot and then drive away. I've picked up garbage in the lot in the morning and it's littered with needles and strips of foil. I've called the police to report the drug activity dozens of times with little or no response. For example, one day I kept calling 911 to report the activity. After several hours of calls, a police car showed up. Most of the drug dealers had already scattered minutes before the police car pulled up in the lot. Apparently they have scanners. And the police car parked and the officer sat in his car for exactly 1 minute. I was watching, and then left without even getting out of the car. So I guess that was just to placate me. This Saturday afternoon, a drug dealer who was living in an RV parked on our street started screaming at my wife. I came out of the house and he threatened to kill me. He used those words, "I'm going to kill you." I called 911. Then the man walked away, and 15 minutes went by and the police still hadn't arrived. And the man came back and he stood on the street and he said, he's screaming that I'm coming for you. 46 minutes after my first call, the police showed up and told me that there was nothing they could do. This was despite the drug dealer standing there right behind them screaming. We're used to a slow response from police in the Jefferson West Side neighborhood, but 46 minutes to respond to an emergency call is ridiculous. I've gathered with neighbors and they don't know what to do because the police don't respond to them either. The Salvation Army.
Thank you, Bill. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Lynn Woodridge, followed by Carolyn Partridge. Lynn, let's do a really quick audio test, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name's Lynn Woodridge. I'm the active Bethel Community Co-Chair, living in Ward 6 with my 94-year-old dad, and have been a homeowner in the Bethel portion of Ward 8 for over 25 years. I won't have an opportunity to discuss this topic with our ABC board until this Wednesday, so this is just coming from me tonight. Northwest Natural proposed implementing a hydrogen blending pilot project in West Eugene. It was to blend 5 to 10% hydrogen by volume into Eugene's gas distribution system in the Bethel neighborhood. On November 1st, they pulled the proposal and have said that they will continue pursuing this with more community input. There's no point in wasting their time. We don't want this experimental project in Bethel, period. I'm not comfortable that Bethel was chosen as their pilot project, and I'm not satisfied or reassured with the answers that were provided to me. Bethel has suffered and is still suffering without adding to potential dangers throughout the community. I received a letter from Northwest Natural to join the forces for energy choice in Eugene, and inside had 2 cards to submit to the city council titled Eugene for Energy Choice. They say, we don't want bans on new natural gas hookups or forced electrification. Instead, we want choice and a diversified set of solutions to lower carbon emissions affordably and sensibly. There's no mention of the dangers of continuing with methane and hydrogen. Northwest Natural is getting desperate. They say in the letter, what's really on the city council agenda is forced electrification, a ban on choice. Needless to say, I won't be sending in the submission cards. Please schedule the next work session for the public health overlay zone and risk bonds. There's a desperate need for these in West Eugene. I can't stress enough the necessity of implementing these policies for protecting the lives of the most vulnerable people living in the Bethel community. We don't want to ever see another J.H. Baxter type polluting business in our area or a potentially dangerous hydrogen pilot project. It has been 40 years since Bethel had an area plan, and we're asking for the Bethel area plan work session to also be scheduled this fall. There's an urgency to get this started. We've been neglected for far too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Next, we will hear from Carolyn Partridge, followed by Stefan Streck.
Hello, City Councilors, Mayor Venus, and City Manager Maderi. It feels good to see you in person after such a long time. My name is Carolyn Partridge, and I live in Ward 2. I am one of the many concerned citizens who have been coming repeatedly before this council to advocate for carbon reduction measures, including the electrification ordinance that's on the table right now. We have been called overzealous and dismissed as just another special interest group. Tonight, there are three things I would like to say. First, not all special interest groups are the same. The climate special interest group does not have a financial, religious, political, or NIMBY agenda. We are simply advocating for the protection of our climate so that our children and grandchildren can have a decent future, at least as good as ours, on a livable planet. That should be a special interest for everyone. Secondly, climate change is upon us, and it will be calling the tune that we dance to. The fossil fuel industry has been calling the tune for too long. Already, we are experiencing devastating losses and damage to property, to crops, and to lives. Every fraction of a degree of heating that we can prevent will lessen future suffering. Losing the choice to run your home on methane is a very small loss compared to other losses that we know are in store. Thirdly, there is a time to follow and a time to lead. This is a time to lead, and you're Eugene's leaders. We don't have time for survey after survey, forum after forum, and hearing after hearing, nor is it time to punt this issue to the ballot. You need to get in front of the public and explain the urgency of the climate threat and the necessity for this ordinance. I believe Eugenians are awaking to the serious situation in which we find ourselves and would be comforted to know that our leaders are aware and responding. It is a certainty that the fossil fuel industry will continue to resist this ordinance. So courage will be required on your part. I wish you Godspeed.
Thank you, Carolyn. Next, we will hear from Stefan Streck, followed by Greg Vick.
Righteous word. Thank you, everybody, for coming down here to listen to myself and the public and everyone else that came down to listen. It's been a pretty excellent year, all things considered. And I'm super, super happy to once again advocate for world peace. It's pretty awesome that we don't have worse things to deal with than what we've got currently on the agenda. I would really super, super love not just once again to hear all these things from everybody, but to hear about advocating for peace. I've got a super cool poster of downtown Washington Jefferson Bridge, and it's some sort of anti-war protest that some people here might remember being at or not remember so well, but it looks like it was pretty awesome. So I'd like for that part of Eugene to be back again. And I apologize for misrepresenting myself in the past, but I really do care so much about public health care, public housing, and housing for animals and animal health care. It's really all I wanted to get personally on the agenda. And so far as this whole world that is so close to war, we've got Democrats arguing with Democrats and Republicans arguing with Republicans and Democrats and Republicans arguing with each other. I think peace begins at home. And certainly we've heard a lot of great things about how to promote peace at home. That's the big first step towards peace in the world. And I'd like to say something just a little bit silly, despite all the silly things I've said in the past. You don't have to be the sharpest crayon in the box to be the brightest crayon in the box. And I think I made that myself. Yeah. It's kind of silly, you know, if the brightest crayon in the box is always the sharpest, it never gets used. So if you want to be bright, you got to be prepared to be a little bit dull sometimes. It's not always exciting. But on that note, there's so many people that have great things to say. I'm really happy to not be the only person here tonight, like I have been in the past. It feels really special, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefan. Next, we will hear from Greg Vick, followed by Thomas Hura.
Thank you. I'm Greg Vick from Ward 5. I'm proud of our 75th year in business here in Eugene, Vick Construction Company. And I'm equally proud of, over that period of time, our family and the amount of effort and money and support we've given to our nonprofits and other community service efforts to do our part. We happen to be located at our office in Glenwood, and we're surrounded by probably 100 to 200 homeless. They're somewhat transitory, and there are some that are there permanently, many of whom are my friends now. I thought it might be reasonable to take one of them under my wing. Megan Legat is mentally ill, and she's on heroin. And as we all know, in any drug and alcohol exposure that you may have had, they have to decide that they're going to get better themselves. You can't do it for them. And so I've spent a fair amount of time trying to get that commitment from her. So I thought it was reasonable, once I thought I had that, to take her to Whitebird and get some help in terms of what kind of track could we be on to help her. And we were basically turned away. And that's the reason I'm here tonight, is because if an interested citizen wants to help any one of them or all of them, there's got to be a track, and there doesn't seem to be a track. And I'm really disappointed in that. And I wanted you guys to be aware of that. We're interested in solutions, not complaints. But she is destined for, not to live much longer, probably. And I think any of you, if you were in my position, would be trying to do something. So anyway, anything you can do to help that situation, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Next, we will hear from Thomas Hura, followed by Joshua Oladipo.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Thomas Hura, Ward 7, and I'm not speaking tonight from my position within the Human Rights Commission nor any other committees or organizations. I do have a message as a private Eugenian, and it's pretty simple. I do want to shine a light on an emergent and collaborative public engagement initiative I've seen from community members in Ward 7. It's known as Ward 7 Neighbors United. It's founded by a steering committee of 3 members: Patty Swinehart of Santa Clara Community Organization, Lawrence Siskind of Whitaker Community Organization, and Jordan Locke of River Road Community Organization there in the middle. I don't have any particular relationship with these people, but I think what's on their website is a pretty good thing. It's ward7neighbors.org. I think the most relevant portion to voters will be, to the community members of Ward 7, will be that the site conveniently publishes all of the applications for the 9 applicants to the interim, or however many applicants there are to the interim city council position. They also have a petition on a transparent, communicative, and special interest-free process that's been signed by 42 folks, including myself. So I hope you will urgently consider the 4 bullet points within the petition. It's found again at Ward 7, the number 7, neighbors.org. Ward 7 voters and their interests should be the chief determinant of who's appointed to the interim seat. And I think you all went through a fair, communicative, and thoroughly democratic process to earn your seat on council. And I believe engaging with the public's articulated voice throughout the entirety of the ward would be the best way to ensure successful representation of the ward. And I'll yield the rest of my time to the people in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Next, we'll hear from Joshua Oladipo, followed by Don Hetty.
Hello, my name is Joshua Oladipo. And before I start, I'd like to say thank you to all the students before us now who have came out to voice their complaints about the Lane County Sheriff's Department. And also like to give my apologies to those who live in the Jefferson West Side area, because this is absolutely inexcusable. So I am a sophomore at the University of Oregon. I am currently studying biochem. My course is very rigorous. And what I've experienced these last couple of weeks has been atrocious. On 147, the police showed up with a search warrant looking for stereo equipment, not to my house, but to a friend's house. I knew many of the people who lived there. I was not at the premise at the time, nor was I there after the cops had showed. And so what basically happened in their account is they came into the house, broke down nearly every door in the house, destroyed most of the locks, and pulled my friends and my friends' roommates out of their beds in their underwears, just to zip tie them and bring them downstairs and put them in transport vehicles. This doesn't sound like a reasonable amount of force to use on anyone who is a college student. Not only were they looking for only stereo equipment, but they actually took my laptop. They took my laptop, they took my best friend's laptop. I've called, I would say maybe one day, like twice a day for the last 2 weeks pertaining to our equipment. Not gotten a response. Every time I call, it's the officers will need to sign it and all this. And I understand there's a process with these things, but everyone who was detained got everything they had reduced to a fine. And so all I ask is that these things that were taken from us so I can finish my degree and not be held here for another year is returned to us. I also bring to you guys that the fact that they collect about $375 in fines from 50 students every single weekend, from Thursday to Sunday. Is any of the money that is being collected used for the cops who are ineffective in responding to other areas in Eugene? No one in Eugene feels safe, let alone us students, even the people who pay their taxes for here. I come from the East Coast where I'm constantly told that cops are supposed to serve and protect, but who are they doing that for? Anyway, thank you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joshua. Next, we will hear from Don Hetty, followed by Joanne Shotola.
Good evening. Don Hetty, Ward 7. Last time I was here, I was 2 sentences shy. I am an applicant for the Ward 7 vacancy, and I do intend to be on the May ballot. I'll get better at this. I got other things to say tonight. First, urban renewal in the steam plant. I'd like to commend Councilor Ye on her emphasis on the housing aspect of urban renewal and where it's located. It's on the outskirts, perfect. You brought that up and I commend you for that. Councilor Clark was spot on with his comments regarding the steam plant. Acknowledging the holes we have there, the challenges, I'll say financially, but the need to make sure that that gets done. And I'd like to elaborate on that and direct my comments to Councilor Groves. I've done some work on finding out how we can fund that. Also, I think we can leverage that for the adjacent area, the U of O Willamette, that stands between that and the proposed 8 acres. That 8 acres is on the other side of that natural area. I've heard a lot about what's happening in my city. That's why I'm running. I live on the 800 block of West 5th. I have good and bad interactions with our police. It's all interlocked. We absolutely must address the homelessness in conjunction with the crime and not have to do it via sweeps. I've got some ideas. I'm going to be quiet now because there's a lot of people with a lot on their mind. I have some ideas and some solutions that I hope to be able to share with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Next, we will hear from Joanne Shotola, followed by Finn Jacobson. Joanne, go ahead.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Joanne Shotola, Ward 5. There's currently 2 ways a landlord can end a tenancy. It's eviction and termination. They're not the same. Eviction is super bad. I'll do it if I have to, but in the first 12 months of tenancy, I'd rather just terminate, and I can. I'm a landlord who manages my own rentals. I don't use a property manager. A property management company has a duty to the owner. I'm the owner, so I can rent to a marginal tenant. I like that option. I can do that because I know that if a tenant doesn't work out, I have 12 months only, to terminate that tenancy without cost. That gives a lot more people a chance at housing that would never be able to otherwise rent. That's great for the tenant. In year one, I just provided housing. Why would I terminate? Perhaps the tenant seemed okay, but the culture doesn't fit. I can't predict that. I need a way to get that person out to keep my other tenants from moving. A co-op on 4th and Adams told me that the tenants there can actually interview a prospective tenant to see if they fit. I'm not suggesting that, but I am suggesting that you leave the first 12 months alone so we can fit the culture as well. Senate Bill 608 currently has displacement assistance in it for terminations after the first year of tenancy. So there's a dividing line, first 12 months, after 12 months. A landlord needs a qualifying reason after the first 12 months. There's only about 4 of them, and we have to give the tenants 3 months notice and write them a check for 1 month's rent. I know council is going to increase that. I know that. The question is by how much? I asked for simplicity. Just take the current rent and pick a multiplier. It's easy and is specific to that unit. Rent isn't a one size fits all. Why should someone paying $1,000 a month get the same as someone paying $2,500 a month? It doesn't economically make sense. In watching and listening to council, there's no doubt that you'll be wanting landlords to pay as much as they can. But I do want to throw in, property management companies are happy that you're doing this, these renter protections, because they're making private people like me have to employ their services if it gets too confusing. That's going to be great for their business, and it's going to be terribly bad for a tenant. So keep it easy. Keep displacement assistance just a multiplier of the rent. Leave year one alone so I can rent to a marginal tenant and know that it'll be okay.
Thank you, Joanne. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Finn Jacobson, followed by Gregory Rasha.
Good evening. My name is Finn Jacobson. I live in the West University District, and I'm first year at the University of Oregon. Now, I'd like to start by saying thank you, Councillor Keating, for acknowledging our generation's contribution to the election. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, that means that you guys have to be ready for us to be here to hold you accountable as well. Thank you. Well, I too have come here tonight to share my concerns about the efficacy of the Eugene Police Department's Party Patrol, and that within our community, the institution which we look to for protection has instead subjected students to an environment rooted in fear. In recent years, more than ever, our country has been forced, rightfully, to reconcile with the systemic failures of our policing institution and work to build a better future. This should be no exception. Everyone in this room today can agree that it is in the best interest of the community to ensure the safety of students, and that use of drugs and alcohol can jeopardize that safety. But stories from peers have indicated to me that the EPD is exacerbating rather than mitigating this issue through its use of force, extensive issuing of citations, and a lack of compassion towards students who find themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like a shadow, stories are looming over our campus of students too scared to call 911 in moments of crisis, and it is sickening. We'll hit it home again. Students are living in fear. Residents of Jefferson West are suffering without aid. You have the power to start to change that, and by the power of the people that you see before you today, I sure hope that you do. I yield my time.
Thank you, Finn. Next, we'll hear from Gregory Rasha, followed by Tara Perillo.
My name is Gregory Rochelle, and I also live in the West University District. I just want to talk about how Eugene PD has been over-policing the wrong area and hasn't been focusing on the actual problems in Eugene. I was part of the property of 30 people that was raided by the police. And the police officers tried to unlawfully enter our home, which resulted in us in telling them that they couldn't, which then they retrieved a warrant, which resulted in multiple broken doors. my friends being pulled out of bed, some in their boxers without shirts or shoes, and my computer also being taken with my friends as well, which I haven't gotten back. And I had to talk to my academic advisors about dropping my classes just to maintain a steady GPA, which I just think is unacceptable. And all I'm trying to do is be here and complete my school. And I know for a fact that my friends have called in multiple reports of homeless people and others threatening and harassing them, and Eugene PD has done nothing about it. Although I have a lot of compassion for the homeless community in Eugene, I don't have compassion for the men who continue to harass women and have no respect for the cops who choose to do nothing about it. I've grown up in Los Angeles where I've dealt with over-policing my whole life. And I can tell you that targeting a specific group or neighborhood never ends well for the community and the police officers involved. Eugene PD needs to look in the mirror and ask themselves, if they're staying true to their oath to protect and serve. I yield my time.
Thank you, Gregory. Next, we'll hear from Tara Perillo, followed by Claudia Santino.
Hi, my name is Tara Perillo, and I have been working as an academic advisor at the U of O for about 7 years. The majority of the students I come across are respectful and well-mannered and want to be good community members. The noise ordinance in Eugene is overreaching and has been used by the police as a pretext, and at times with no warning, to cite large groups of college students. Some have even been handcuffed and taken to jail for respectfully standing up for their rights. The noise ordinance is being used to target students, but not other community members having loud gatherings. These interactions with police are making students feel like they cannot trust police officers and that the police are unreasonable and unnecessarily harsh. I do not think this is the kind of relationship that we want to foster between young people and the police. As adults, our job is to mentor young people and show them right from wrong. As a community and as law enforcement, we can do better to build relationships and mentor students to be good community members here in Eugene. The way things are being handled right now is not a good use of the courts and of our community resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Next, we'll hear from Claudia Santino, followed by Spencer Smith.
Hi there. My name is Claudia Santino, and thank you for giving us all the chance to speak here today. After hearing much testimony, I feel very devastated to hear that the effects of increased police presence on campus is only negatively affecting your citizens of Eugene. I'm currently a junior at the University of Oregon, and I major in global studies and minor in public health. So we hear a lot about the issues with the homeless population in the area. I currently reside in the South University campus area, so I'm actually able to represent a different area in the university that has also still been experiencing these occurrences. However, I'm also in a unique scenario where I come to you with a perspective not only as a student, but as a community member. And I say this because in Eugene specifically, over the past few years, this campus has had a very rich history of a DIY music scene, and it's been a chance for students and non-students alike to experience live music and giving a chance for people to connect. Over the past 6 months, the overwhelming rise in police presence on campus, and especially in this music scene, has affected many of us detrimentally. I can speak to this myself because I perform in a band in the Eugene area, and we have performed multiple times, both on South and West campus. Spring show, we had a police occurrence that occurred right around 8 o'clock. And we did know that there was a noise ordinance, and that takes place from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So we weren't breaking that in any way. And as we were aware of this ordinance, we thought we had planned accordingly and wouldn't be bothering anybody. But that obviously was not the case. They immediately shut things down, and it was closed early with no reason. And one of the only established DIY venues per se in the area was also shut down after being given numerous tickets and citations. And that venue's name was the Blue Dragon. And I stand here today, representing my fellow students, but also Eugene community members, as I feel like this is not only affecting the students, but it's clearly affecting the rest of your population here in Eugene. And we're only going to continue to lose trust in the police and continue to feel unsafe. And we're just going to continue to lose our sense of community here. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Next, we will hear from Spencer Smith, followed by Macy Patel.
Hi, I will live in the West University District. I'm here to talk about an encounter I had with the police as well. It was October 29th around 10:30 p.m. I was hosting a party in my backyard, and one of my friends came and told me that there were police out front of my house. So from everything that I have learned and been told throughout my childhood and upcoming, I go out and talk to the police. I'm respectful. The first question I was asked is how many people live in my house? With no hesitation, I told them 5, and I was immediately told if all 5 roommates aren't out here, that I was going to jail that night. I didn't know why the police were at my house, and I didn't know why every roommate needed to come out. I didn't know where all my roommates were. One of them was out of town that weekend, and the other 3, I hadn't seen them in probably 20-30 minutes, and I wasn't sure of their exact locations. I had a friend go inside to try and find other roommates, and luckily one other roommate was still home. The other 2 that were still in Eugene had left earlier. They'd gone to their girlfriend's house. When he finally came out, the police kind of calmed down, but there was one sergeant that was very pushy and demanding. He even went up to our front door and was yelling at my roommate's girlfriend to get out of the house or she was going to be trespassed. And from my understanding of trespassing is that us as the people that live at that house have to instruct the police to trespass that person. And she was in no violation, or that officer was not requested to get anyone out of our house or that person out of our house. We felt that the police action was very unjust and quite ridiculous. We didn't get a warning. We found out that the police were there for a noise complaint, which that made sense. It was 10:30 and we were having a party. We were fully willing to shut down the party, but we were not given the chance. Instead, we were charged with criminal misdemeanors for a noise complaint at 10:30 p.m. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Next, we will hear from Macy Patel, followed by Joshua Korn.
Hello, my name is Macy Patel, and I'm a junior at the University of Oregon. I'm also a part of the Associated Students of UO. And as a student leader who has recently been talking to students and discussing and working on addressing the recent unacceptable behavior of the Eugene Police Department, it is extremely clear that the Eugene Police Department's Party Patrol program is ineffective. I'm so incredibly disappointed to hear week after week stories from my peers about their negative experiences with the Eugene Police Department. I've heard multiple stories from young women experiencing the Eugene Police Department using physical force and even harassment while issuing citations. We are also seeing aggression and force by Eugene Police Department officers towards bystanders and students attempting to exercise their rights. It is extremely inappropriate and unnecessary for 4 or 5 male cops to be issuing a citation to 1 or 2 college-aged women, often with force and very little explanation. This use of force is disgraceful, excessive, and unnecessary. On top of that, the massive amount of citations is creating an unnecessary burden on students who often lack financial resources and time, along with university services and municipal courts. The Eugene Police Department Party Patrol program excludes a vital educational aspect and instead takes an aggressive approach, giving students citations with very little explanation. This is an incredibly unnecessary use of our tax dollars, especially hearing people in the Jefferson area's experiences. This program has widely delegitimized the police amongst students and is resulting in the loss of trust in the police department that is supposed to be protecting us. We as students urge you to assess the effectiveness of this program and the recent actions of the Eugene Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Macy. Next, we'll hear from Joshua Korn, followed by Veronica Miller.
Thank you for all of your support here and much gratitude for, I hope all that injustice gets resolved. But I'm here to bring up some, another issue that, of course, you all recognize me on this issue. Some good reasons for updating our zoning codes to reject, lawfully reject unneeded wireless transmitting facilities that are very dangerous, actually. Aside from it being a less known issue than what all these folks here are talking about. I urge you to uphold your oath to the Constitution intended to safeguard our pursuit of life, liberty, happiness, intended to help ensure law comes from bodies of elected representatives like Congress, not unelected entities like the FCC and big telecom monopolies that it serves. And secondly, to limit our exposure to technologies that were originally designed for military purposes with no proof of safety for civilian purposes and no coverage by insurance companies who know the real science and data shows these technologies are indeed harmful to humans and other living beings. Thirdly, to protect our personal data from being swept up mostly without our awareness and sold to the highest bidders, as described by Harvard business professor Shoshana Zuboff in her book and video on surveillance capitalism. Fourthly, to limit or reverse the $1 million hole in the city budget, which was ripped open by the FCC tower fee limit, then backed by federal judges and continues to be exploited by big money telecoms to avoid paying the real costs of these towers in order to increase profits and dividends for their big shareholders. So thank you, and please do the right thing on this and update our zoning codes and reject these telecoms. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Next, we'll hear from Veronica Miller, followed by our final speaker, Catherine Dunn.
Hello, I am a resident in Ward 1, and I am also a housing provider in the city of Eugene. So I'd like to bring the conversation back to the proposed tenant protections for a moment and comment on the city council policymaking process. I finally came to the understanding that the Springfield Eugene Tenant Association has greatly influenced the city council by drafting the roadmap for these so-called renter protections. This tenant advocacy organization is in the city council's ear, and I expect my city council to follow better decision-making processes. And I do thank two city council members who are questioning whether CETA should be lobbying city council. So I do appreciate that. And I would like to comment more specifically on one of the proposed phase 2 renter protections, specifically the displacement prevention assistance, again, drafted by CETA and fed to city council. This proposal suggests overriding, for those who aren't aware, the allowable Oregon statewide rent increases that are set each year and based on economic analysis, and just randomly setting a rent increase threshold to no more than the latest proposal was 5% each year. So I just wanted to express my view and that of many housing providers in the city that just picking a percent out of a hat is fairly ludicrous. Housing providers decide to increase rents based on economy and taxes that go up every year, our insurance. The rates fluctuate based on economy. And then this relocation assistance, which I do find to be quite ludicrous, if the tenant decides that that rent increase is too high, the housing provider has to provide them 3 months of relocation assistance, which is just, it's really ludicrous. So we live in an economic society, and I just would like to, in closing, call on Eugene City Council to follow sound decision-making processes and not dismiss the comments provided by Eugene area housing providers, because we do follow the law and we do make an attempt to be reasonable housing providers, and that's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Veronica. Last, we will hear from Catherine Dunn.
Thank you. Catherine Dunn, Ward 5, and I'm speaking about renter protections. I recently sent the council an email that outlined a step-by-step policy-making process published by the League of Oregon Cities. And there are several initial steps needed to identify a problem and set goals prior to developing solutions, I should say. The city skipped these initial steps when considering renter protections, such as number 1, did you identify problems or needs? No. No valid data or evidence that was verified was used to identify problems or needs. Instead, you identified problems and needs by listening to anecdotal evidence, which were complaints by tenant advocates primarily, and assuming that those complaints were valid and widespread. Number 2, did you establish goals and objectives? No, specific goals and measurable objectives were not established. So if these protections are instituted, there would be no way to measure progress. Number 3, were alternative solutions developed or analyzed, including long and short-term implications? No, the protections were all based on Portland's FAIR policy from the very start, pushed by the Housing Policy Board. Other solutions were not allowed to be introduced by the housing providers who participated on the Renter Protection Committee, which was put together by the Housing Policy Board. And long and short-term implications were never studied through proper professionals, data, or analysis. The City Council and its committees have literally skipped the most important steps past go and went directly to implementing laws that will harm housing providers, tenants, and Eugene's rental supply. Decision-making based on anecdotal evidence with no verified facts has gone too far and must be corrected for the sake of our community and our trust in our elected officials. I propose that the city use good decision-making processes such as the 10-step list put out by the League of Oregon Cities. If that were done, you'd know what the true problems were and you'd be able to create effective solutions. On another note, on phase 2 renter protections, I oppose limiting security deposits to 2 times rent. The security deposit amount should be left up to the housing provider. I recently received a call from a tenant at 6:30 in the morning reporting flooding in her house. Her toilet overflowed and the whole place was flooded. ServPro went out, removed all the flooring, had to cut some of the drywall, and the first bid came back at $40,000. Housing providers are taking a risk on every tenant. We should be able to set the security deposit we feel comfortable with. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Catherine. That was our final speaker, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for coming and sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate hearing, even though much of this testimony was very disturbing and distressing. So I very much appreciate you taking the time to comment. I do have counselors who I think will want to respond, but I wanted to say in particular, I think Luda, you and I have met before. There are several of you from the ASUO, and I would be happy to set up a time to talk to you at more length. So thank you, and we can follow up. Okay, thank you so much. And with that, do I have counselors? Counselor Semple?
Thank you. Thank you for coming to tell us what it's like for you. This was a very impressive turnout. It's the most people we've had since we started meeting in this building. I really appreciate it. I appreciate people having the strength and intelligence to come forward and tell us what their truth is. This is very distressing, and I'm grateful to our mayor that we will be looking at it. I am the counselor for JWN, and thank you also for coming to tell me more bad news, and I will be looking into that also. It's hard to listen to things like this. I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ye.
Yeah, thanks. So I wanted to comment on a couple of people's testimony. So I'm going to start. Greg, I really appreciate what you were willing to do for that young woman. I know that it's a difficult journey to get someone to be willing to get help. And the fact that you then hit that wall must have been very difficult for both of you in that situation. It's a priority for myself, and I think I can speak for all council, to get better drug treatment and mental health treatment in our community. Unfortunately, that doesn't fall as much in our bucket, but it's a high priority when we're advocating to our county and state representatives to step up and fill this need. You're right, we have an embarrassingly low amount of commitment in that area. And I'm glad that you came and shared that personal story, because sometimes those personal stories mean more to us than just hearing we need more funding, right? You need that face to understand the situation. So thank you for sharing that with us. So for the city manager, I would love to get, so obviously we have a large number of students here today, and it's been a long time, but I was a University of Oregon student myself, and I will admit I have been to a few parties. So I can get why it would be, difficult to deal with a police officer late at night after a party. But I would love to get some more information about the outreach that we did leading up to this school's to this school year. It was my understanding that there's been some door-to-door outreach and working with the U of O, and we may or may not have worked with the ASUO. So just to be able to have a better understanding of what we've preemptively done, and whether that was adequate or we need to think about that in a different way going forward would be very helpful. I myself have not seen any of the body cam footage or any other videos, so but I know that it has been forwarded to our police auditor, who I have a lot of confidence in, and does a very good job. And I would encourage that if anyone has not reported it to our police officer, our police auditor, that is an avenue that's open to you. And she takes it very seriously, and that can be very helpful. So I'd love to get that back. And I know we had some preliminary information, but maybe a little bit more in depth, especially around the one that had a large number of arrests, so we could better understand would be helpful.
Thank you. Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilor Ye actually spoke to quite a bit of what I was going to say regarding UVic. It's Greg, it was county has a lot of the mental health. We need to find a better way to work in our different lanes in trying to address the larger problem. To the neighbors in Jefferson West Side neighborhood, I hear the problem. I hear you. I've seen it. Also to the Ward 8 residents, Mr. Beecher, who spoke earlier. We've done quite a bit to clean up West Eugene and to try to address our unhoused and behavioral problems. We've been able to move a lot of people off the street into better facilities, better living conditions. We still have a lot to do. Lately, we've been trying to work more in the Amazon area. Mr. Locke here has been involved in that as well. And he recognized, and it's true, we have made some progress, but these things, it's like a revolving door. We just have to keep going back, and it's important, and people need to feel safe and be safe, and not have to worry about their families' safety or having their homes broken into. These are things that we definitely need to be doing. On the students that we're talking about, in this instance, the West Eugene area. Obviously this is just on the front end of this happening, but I heard a number of people asking, where did all this come from? Well, it came from a series of out of control parties that were causing a lot of damage. People were getting hurt. Things were out of control there for a while. So that's what triggered some of this. With that said, the devil's in the detail. We need to find out exactly what happened. But I just wanted to share that piece because people were on the other side of the issue talking about the problems that weren't being addressed. And that's how we got to where we are. Thank you.
Any other counselors with comments? Councilor Peter.
Ever so briefly, Mayor. Well, first of all, there's only one Ward 2 constituent who provided testimony tonight. So Carolyn, thank you for being here. I appreciate your testimony, your thoughtful articulation about this moment in history, and I agree wholeheartedly with your assessment. Thank you. Wild with such a packed room. There's only one Ward 2 constituent providing testimony today. But to those of you who don't necessarily live in South Eugene, and especially to the first presenter tonight, who said that they're not a resident or they're not a resident of Oregon. Yeah, you are part of our community, part of the fabric of our community. You're an Oregon resident and you're here and you're participating in our democracy. Not only thank you for sharing your stories with us tonight, I thank you for sticking through to the end. A good portion of your colleagues left early. That's fine. That's great. But it means so much that you're sticking it out and seeing it through. I appreciate the mayor greatly setting up a meeting with ASUO student body leadership. I look forward to hearing how that meeting goes and hopefully come to a resolution that works for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark. No. You're still on mute.
And thank you, Mayor, very much. I want to say that I agree with many of the comments of my colleagues tonight. For the students who are still present and don't know this already, I can see on my screen here that the chief is listening to the public testimony tonight, and I know him to be a good man who wants to have a good relationship with the members of our community, with the department. I know him to be the sort of man who would not take the things he heard tonight lightly and will work hard for making that situation better. I would also let them know that although Councilor Ye already mentioned the police auditor, any complaint against an officer goes straight to the police auditor, and the police auditor works for the council, not for the police department. And by the power of the city charter, has the authority to oversee all investigations into officers and their behavior. They have the opportunity to look over the shoulder, as it were, of internal affairs and make sure that all such investigations are done thoroughly and fairly and appropriately. So I can assure you that this matter will be taken seriously and be addressed at the top of the command in our department to ensure that people are treated appropriately. And as a last thing, I would say to Lynn Woodrich is a happy belated birthday to your father there. I think he just turned 94 from what I heard you say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. If there are no other comments, that concludes the public forum. I want to thank you again for coming. And I also really want to thank you for being an incredibly respectful audience. So we really appreciate that, that you listened, you made it a safe space for everyone to say what they needed to say. So very much appreciate that. Thank you all. And with that, we have one item of business to pursue, and action and ordinance vacating a portion of East Fifth Avenue located within the boundaries of the plat of Town Run. So manager, do you need to speak to this at all, or?
I can. I have a brief description.
Okay.
If you'd like it. For it. So tonight you have the opportunity to take action on the Urban Renewal Agency's request for vacation of a small portion of an.
I'm sorry. Wait, let's just hold for 1 second. Well, as you all clear out so that we can actually hear ourselves. Thank you.
Folks, we're trying to conduct a
Still
meeting here
meeting.
still.
Still meeting.
It's okay. We can wait 2 seconds. Don't get that. There we go. Okay, now we go. Thank you.
Thanks. So tonight you have an opportunity to take action on the Urban Renewal Agency's request for vacation of a small portion of an undeveloped plat, specifically a small corner of the East Fifth Avenue right-of-way. The Urban Renewal Agency filed the request for vacation related to the City Council's approval of the Town Run subdivision located on the downtown riverfront property. The right-of-way was created by the original plat of Eugene City in 1852, but never developed, and as a result, the vacation requires City Council approval. The applicant has requested the vacation to facilitate the preparing of the property for redevelopment as part of the downtown riverfront project. And if you have questions about it, I know we have staff online.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions about this? All right, we want to put that on the table, Councilman?
I move to adopt an ordinance vacating a portion of East Fifth Avenue located within the boundaries of the plat of Town Run.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that passes unanimously. Thank you all very much, and we are adjourned.